Hey everyone, welcome back to Falcon Central Radio Show on the Pro Football Central Radio Network. I am Aaron Freeman over at FalcFans.com. I am joined as usual by my co-host Scott Karasik at the Falcoholic. We are back this week to talk all about the Falcons free agent period. We've been about 1 week into free agency, so there's a lot of moves, a lot of things to catch up on. Helping us to do so, we have with us Charles McDonald over at the Falcoholic at Playmaker Mentality, Optimum Scouting, Frenzied Falcon podcast. Am I missing any plugs, Charles?
That's it.
All right, there we go. This guy's all over the place. But he's here with us tonight, and we'll be talking about free agency questions, and we'll be answering you guys' mailbag questions throughout the show and at the end. So let's get started. It's a new season for the Falcons, 2016. They made a bunch of additions. The big signing, probably the first big signing, was Alex Mack. Falcons gave him a 5-year, $45 million contract to save Matt Ryan and to be able to snap the ball to him and potentially win the Falcons 2 more games just on snaps. So what were your guys' initial takes on seeing that Alex Mack got signed by the Falcons and on the money he got paid?
But the money was lower than I thought it'd be. I was expecting 11. I was hearing 11 from a lot of guys. So when he signed for 9, I was like, oh, okay, I can deal with that. That's not bad. $9 million a year, the way it's structured, with a lot of the cap hits more towards 19, 20, 21. That's a really good structure. It was a really good deal for the way it's set up. And I do think that Matt Ryan needs him in the middle of that offense.
Yeah, I liked it too. I thought it was too much money when I originally saw the numbers, but like Scott said, it was structured well. And even if Mac's play has kind of declined over the past year or two, he's still a massive upgrade over Mike Person. So yeah, I thought it was a good signing by the Falcons.
NFL, our worst center in the NFL to arguably a top 5 center in the NFL. Easy.
Yeah, I mean, it was a massive upgrade, and I mean, if you look at the Falcons line, they've got 3, upper tier starters in Matthews, Mack, and then Schrader, and that's a really good start to building, probably one of the better offensive lines in the NFL, and I mean, he's probably not going to be like that elite guy for that much longer, but 2 more years of top 5 center play, along with Matthews, who's budding into a top 10 left tackle, and Schrader's, who's probably already a top 10 right tackle. That's a great place to start.
You got to think he's going to make Levitri better, though.
I don't know about that.
Well, you got to think Person wasn't doing anyone any favors playing center next to Levitri and Chester. It was kind of like a black hole on the offensive line. Because when you have bad center play, everything around it goes to shit. We saw that with Peter Collins. You put Hawley in with the exact same 2 guys, with Asamoah and Blaylock, and that line looks so much better just from flipping Hawley in there. So, center play is way more important than people make it out to be, especially when you've got a guy who's never snapped a ball in his life, and then you put him at center right after. Here we go. All right, and then Mohamed Sanu. So with this one, the structure looks good the first 2 years. If he can live up to what he did in 2014, pretty much every year of the thing. I'm okay if he drops 6 balls if he catches 60 of them. Because I hate to say it this way, that's what Roddy White did back from 2010 to 2012 anyway.
Yeah.
You're gonna drop if you're dropping 1 out of every 10. but you're catching 60, 65, 70 balls a year, and you're getting 850, 900 yards, and you're scoring 6, 7 touchdowns, what's really the difference between that and Roddy White? Not in his prime, but like those years that Julio was first starting to get up.
Yeah, I just think, I mean, the production was so little for him last year as a fifth receiving option in the Bengals offense. And I know, like, I get that, you know, Green, Jones, Eifert, Bernard, I mean, that's ridiculously talented supporting cast for Andy Dalton, but come on, man, like 394 yards, 0 touchdowns. And I mean, there was better production in 2014, but
he got half the targets he did in 2014.
I know, but you know, it just still seems like a major projection for the money that they gave him. And you know, I'm not even that convinced that he's that much better than Hankerson, if he is at all, really. I mean, I think the difference is negligible if he is better. It's just.
I think the difference is age. A lot of coaches and teams look at draft status. Again, I'm not in love with the signing. Don't get me wrong. But I'm going to play devil's advocate. And I'm going to play the devil's advocate on this one and just go with what makes sense on this one. As to what I can see the team liking about him. He's a guy who can get open underneath. He may not be a deep threat, but he, for whatever reason, when he's got a top 5 receiver across from him, like A.J. Green, he was getting open deep. So he might have the ability to be a deep threat in the offense. I do see them kind of paying him for what they think he can do as opposed to paying him for what he did in the past. And this contract after the first 2 years is extremely easy to get out of. So it's really more of a 2-year, $14 million deal than a 5-year, $32.5 million deal.
Yeah, I mean, I think for this signing to really be justified, he's just going to have to be a guy that kind of feasts underneath and just, you know, destroys like linebackers and safeties on that second level. Because I mean, I will give him credit for this. Like we've seen him in the past on these gadget plays. He's good when he gets the ball in his hands. You know, he knows. You know, he's a very natural runner with the ball. You know, he knows how to break tackles. He knows how to set up angles for himself because he's not the fastest guy. But I think that's where he's going to have to win in this offense, kind of as a guy who wins in the short to intermediate game, who makes plays after the catch.
Yeah, and that's, again, I'm going devil's advocate on this one. If that's where he wins, and that's how he's going to have to win in this offense, wouldn't you say that this is a good fit, at least?
Yeah. Yeah. I guess it's a good fit.
I mean, that's the thing. The Falcons may be like, hey, he may not have done a lot last year. He may not be the perfect receiver all around. But for a number 2 wide receiver in the Atlanta Falcons offense in 2016, 17, and 18, he's what we're looking for. A big target that can go underneath and be a solid possession receiver.
Okay, I guess this is the point where I jump in and give my 2 cents. I think, Scott, you do make some points. I spent a good chunk of the last couple of days trying to figure out why the Falcons liked Sanu. And I think if you look at it from the perspective of as long as Julio Jones is healthy and they can sort of use Sanu to help create some stuff for Julio like they did with Hankerson last year and, you know, use Julio to create some stuff for Sanu underneath. And as Charles said, the one really good trait he has is his ability after the catch. You know, he's more of an athlete than a wide receiver, I would say, at this point.
I agree.
I think he can do some positive things in this offense. I think the problem comes in he gets paid basically like what Golden Tate got paid 2 years ago when he signed with the Detroit Lions to basically be the number 2 to Calvin Johnson. And Golden Tate, at least the year prior, was the Seahawks' number 1 receiver. And when Golden Tate is playing well, you know, you see a little bit of Steve Smith with him. I think when Sanu is playing his best football, I think the best version of him is maybe like Jordan Matthews or something like that. which I guess is fine, but I don't necessarily see that as like your best case scenario is Jordan Matthews, who, most Eagle fans, I know Charles' boy Ben Natan probably isn't a huge fan of Jordan Matthews, but
Charles' boy. I've known Ben for way longer than Charles.
But no, it's just one of those things where the thing about it is this is the point where I think the Sanu signing sort of falls short is with the Golden Tate comparison. When Calvin missed 3 games in 2014, Golden Tate was able to step up and be that number 1 guy, and the Lions won all 3 games, including one against the Falcons in London that season. And I think if that situation would arise with the Falcons at any point in the next 2 years, I think they would be much closer to 0-3. I just don't think Sanu gives them a guy that's going to be able to step up and be that number 1 guy in the event that Julio Jones gets nicked up or has a bad hamstring, which has happened 4 out of 5 seasons. So I feel like it's a lot of money basically to basically have maybe a slightly better version of Leonard Hankerson. So I just don't understand why the Falcons would spend that type of money, but it is what it is. They'll have Mohamed Sanu playing, and I told somebody this the other day. It's like if you like the Sanu signing, then you probably like Kyle Shanahan. But if you don't like Kyle Shanahan, then you probably shouldn't like the Sanu signing.
But I like Shanahan. I don't like the Sanu signing. See, I thought that they would have been better off, like drafting a guy, because I think there's a lot of receivers in this draft that like hypothetically would have been a perfect fit across from Julio. Like Doxson, Treadwell, Corey Coleman, Michael Thomas. Like there's a lot of guys that could fit in this offense, and then they just kind of went and blew money on the guy who could barely get on the field for the Bengals last year. I don't know.
I agree with you, Charles. I think if they got Benjamin or Jones, that was worth spending money on because those guys are clearly NFL-ready caliber. I think if Sanu is the 3rd option on that list, I don't think he brings anything more to the table than, say, a rookie who may or may not be able to impact quickly in the league. But you're just not the drop-off between Sanu and some second-round pick is probably non-existent. If not, that second-round pick is better than Sanu. So it's just,
right.
I just don't understand why you would spend that type of money to get someone who's marginally better than someone that you could take in the 2nd or 3rd round.
See, well, that's the thing with free agency. Ideally, the Falcons went into it saying, we'll sign Aloka, Jarrell Freeman, Danny Trevathan, Mohamed Sanu, Travis Benjamin, sign all these guys and still have a lot of money left over. The problem is those guys all have to want to come here too. Trevathan was offered more money by the Falcons and wound up going to Chicago. Freeman was offered more money by the Falcons and wound up going to Chicago because they like John Fox better than they like Dan Quinn. That's what it boiled down to. Not saying that Quinn's a bad coach or Quinn couldn't close the deal or whatever. They liked Fox better. It's that simple. Trevathan played for Fox. Freeman just liked him better. But the money was there. The money was even. So this whole oh hey, they offered Aloka about the same amount of money that they offered Sanu, and Aloka chose to stay in Cincinnati with Marvin Lewis instead of come to Atlanta. Again, it's the perception of does Atlanta do enough to get these guys here? They do, but it's still tough to pull guys if they want to not move all their family away from Cincinnati because they've been there their entire career. Or hey, this guy likes his head coach that he started with in the beginning. Or, hey, Travis Benjamin wants to go and live by the beach in San Diego instead of in downtown Atlanta, which I, honestly, having been to San Diego, I can't blame him. I would much rather live in San Diego than Atlanta, but bills and money.
Well, I think that's a good point, Scott. It's just my issue isn't with we didn't sign this guy, we didn't sign this guy. My issue is that's not really an excuse to give Mohamed Sanu $32 million. Like, you cannot get Travis Benjamin, you cannot get Marvin Jones, you cannot get Jarrell Freeman, but that doesn't make giving Mohamed Sanu $32 million better. It's just you basically saying, well, we
just the Falcons after him too. Again, it's all economics. Market value of a player is set by what teams are willing to pay him.
Yeah, and
The Raiders
just because
are
you're willing to pay it doesn't make it a good contract.
Hold on. If the Raiders are out there saying, "Hey, we'll give you $31 million," and the Falcons are like, "We really like Sanu, and we just missed out on Travis Benjamin and Marvin Jones," that's why you pay that 32 to get him.
Yeah, I get that. I understand market economics. It's not something that's beyond me. The problem is if you really like Sanu, that's the problem. You shouldn't really like Sanu.
Right.
I mean, that's the issue. Like it's.
I mean,
like it's not like you know. Okay, like what makes Sanu such a big priority? Where you're saying we gotta get this guy so the Patriots don't get him. You know.
maybe they see something that we don't. Maybe Sanu just drops everything. Maybe he turns it around and he's a 80 catch, 1,000-yard, 6 touchdown guy like Roddy White in his prime for 3-4 years, and we're all looking like idiots 3 years from now, going, man, that contract looks like shit when he signed it, but damn, he really proved us wrong. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe Shanahan knows something that we don't.
They do know something that we don't. They do see something that we don't. They see talent, and we don't because it doesn't exist, So it's just one of those things where we're going to be looking back at this contract.
The guy's completely devoid of all NFL talent whenever you don't like him.
No, he's not devoid of NFL talent, but he is a backup. It's just it's like Tyson Jackson over and over again. Except for Mohamed Sanu is not better than Tyson. Like Tyson Jackson is worth $32 million more than Mohamed Sanu. He's a backup NFL receiver, a mid-level number 3. If you power rank the number 2 receivers in the NFL, Mohamed Sanu would probably be like 29th on that list, and the 3 guys behind him would be either really, really old guys that are at the end of their careers or really, really young guys who are just barely beginning.
Either one of these guys, Tyson Jackson nor Mohamed Sanu, are really worth more than like 18, 19 million, if we're being honest. And honestly, Tyson Jackson's worth about 6 over a 5-year contract.
I would say Sanu is worth about the same amount. We just got fleeced, and it is what it is. It's the Falcons for you.
It's market economics. There's going to be one bad deal every year with TD here that everybody hates it. It is what it is.
Okay. Well, is it time to talk about something we do like, which is Derek Shelby?
Yeah, I fucking love that signing.
All right, so Derek Shelby signed for a 4-year, $18 million contract. We got a mailbag question from Rise Up Reader. He says, will Derek Shelby outperform his contract with the Falcons?
Is the sky blue?
Well, I mean, how much are we expecting him to produce? Like,
I mean, expectations personally.
Yeah.
Great run defense, 3 to 4 sacks a year. That's what he's being paid for.
I mean, that's fair for 4 years, $18 million.
For 4 years, $18 million, that's what he should be doing. What I think he's going to do, I think he'll probably do 5 to 6 sacks a year. He'll probably see a lot more snaps than we're expecting. And I think he'll be so good that they end up either benching or cutting Tyson Jackson out of the base.
I think that's the direction they're moving in anyways.
I think so too, but I'm saying like once he fully gets the defense, I think he'll be in that Michael Bennett role, and it wouldn't shock me to see him perform as a poor man's Michael Bennett, getting those 6, 7, even 8 sack years, year in, year out, creating a lot of pressure, and giving the Falcons that unique defensive line just weapon. I watched a lot of film after the Falcons signed him. He's very good. Like, I don't know why he was available. Because if I was the Dolphins, I would have cut Cameron Wake and paid Derek Shelby for more money than what the Falcons did. I would have given him 4 years, 20, and been like, hey, you're staying in Miami. There's no next year.
I mean, I think Shelby was definitely a good signing. I think what we saw when they cut Soliai, that they're going to try to, move away from those traditional Seattle defenses where they had the nose tackle and the super heavy, Red Bryant, Tyson Jackson defensive end, and try to get sleeker and faster up front. And I think Shelby was a great way to kind of start that trend. He's not Michael Bennett, but he does offer kind of that same inside-out versatility where you can rush him off the edge on passing downs, and you can kick him inside on passing downs too. I think a realistic goal for him next year is 4 or 5 sacks while kind of flushing the pocket and maybe making things a little bit easier on Claiborne and Beasley, rushing off the outside, and he's going to play great run defense. So I really like this fit. I think it makes a lot of sense, and I mean this is my favorite signing of the. For price and talent level, this is my favorite signing that they made.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty fair assessment. I guess my expectations for Shelby is I think he'll probably do exactly what Claiborne did last year. Like I think he's going to probably be about 3 or 4 sacks. He'll get 15, 20 pressures, something like that. Maybe a couple of hits. This is kind of the contract I was sort of dreading the Falcons throwing at Claiborne, just because Claiborne has that injury history, and you don't want to really lock yourself into a long-term deal with him. But it is one of those things where I think with Shelby, he has some room to grow. He has some upside to get better. I do, agree with you guys that he'll play that Bennett role. He's not, as Charles said, on the level of Michael Bennett, but I do think he can give value for the Falcons in the rotation. So I think he'll do good work here.
Speaking of Claiborne and his 2-year, $9 million deal, that's basically a bunch of incentives and cap hits that are maybe $2 million the first year. Let's see, the cap hit the first year, $3 million the first year, and then the second year it's all of $4 million, $5 million, something like that. 5.5. So if he shows that he's worth it, he'll come back next year. I like that contract for Claiborne. It's basically a second prove-it deal, or we're just going to cut you and move on at this point. I think that's the ideal fit for Claiborne.
Yeah.
And I think that his role is going to be that base defensive end role that Corey Bierman was playing last year. So I think in the base you'll see Claiborne, you'll see either Mbu or a draft pick at nose tackle. I think you'll see Hageman and then either T-Jax or you're going to see Shelby there.
Yeah, I think. I kind of think Claiborne was miscast as early in the season last year, because I think that they saw him and a lot of us saw him as this guy who was gonna be able to kick inside on rushing downs and wreak havoc inside, but I don't really think that's his game, and I think they kind of saw towards the end of the year that he was better rushing off the edge against left tackles and having Beasley come off the edge against the right tackles. So I think Claiborne's going to be, he's going to spend more time at Leo than he did last year, and I think they're going to have Beasley play that strong side linebacker role and kind of just not get rid of Brooks Reed, but cut down his role tremendously because he doesn't really do anything. So I think they're bringing Claiborne back to be, that Leo who's going to stay there on rushing and passing downs and, kind of have Beasley come off the other side. So, I like this signing, especially if they can get the Claiborne from the last, 3 or 4 weeks. I think he's definitely, a barely an above average player.
Yeah. I think with Claiborne, he'll probably play the DE and the nickel. I think I'm starting to see what you guys were talking about earlier with Jarrett maybe playing the nose and the base. It's a little surprising to me that the Falcons didn't go after sort of a nose in free agency, just even a guy that just could be a stopgap there. So it does make me think what you guys were saying, a couple of weeks ago, that Jarrett would play that role. I think that's going to be the case. And you'll probably see Claiborne and Beasley on the edges in the nickel, and then Shelby and Bennett. Not Bennett. Avenel in the middle, and then Jarrett will get mixed in there as well, just so that they can keep guys fresh, and you'll see Shelby playing outside as well at times in nickel as well. So bringing back Claiborne, everybody probably knows I'm not the world's biggest fan of Adrian Claiborne. I feel like you can probably get better, but for this money, for that contract, I don't really have a problem with it. And he does have value. It's just I hope and pray that one day the Falcons won't be relying on him to be, one of their 4 or 5 best pass rushers, and he can be a deep rotation guy that can only play 15 snaps and do what he does for that.
Well, here's the thing. The Falcons, I still think, are going to end up drafting that nose tackle for that role. And I don't think it's going to be Jarrett in that specific role. I think you'll see Javon Hargrave given contention, just someone who's like 3'10", that can move a little bit better. So Hargrave, Jihad Ward could be a good fit, even though he's only about 300. He sucks, but he can be coached. And he's not going to be asked to do much. I think he's better than Embu is right now. He's got good athletic profile, too. That's where I think they're going to look in. The others, they did show interest earlier on in the offseason in Matt Ioannidis out of Temple. He can eat up blockers on the inside. But the name that I think they'll end up going with is DJ Reader out of Clemson. They've been pulling out of this Clemson talent pool. If you want a guy who can eat up double teams, Reader does it all the time. And for whatever reason, that Clemson defensive line is being taught, hey, you have to work together, all 4 of you, in order to create pressure. And every year I watch them, and I don't know what Venables does up there with those guys, but whenever they pass rush as a team. It's not just one guy going in trying to create pressure. It's all of them knowing what the play is and running their role, running their stunts, and they do a great job of it. And I think Reader would be a perfect fit in the Falcons' defense in the base because I think he could create pass rush pressure in the base.
Okay. ATL Sports 404 asked a question about Shelby. He says, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much did the pass rush improve by adding Derek Shelby?
Like a 4?
Yeah, 4 or 5 maybe. Now, if he's playing all of Tyson Jackson's snaps, then probably closer to a 5 or a 6. If the Falcons end up trading Jackson for a 7th or Martellus Bennett, then yeah, it'd be nice. Yeah, I know it sounds crazy to you. I know it sounds crazy, but the Bears view Bennett the way the Falcons view Jackson. He's completely expendable. They're going to cut him if they don't trade him. And the money on the contracts works.
All right.
No, I mean, they're both viewed completely expendable by their teams. They're both worth about a 7th from their teams.
All right, let's move on to some more signings. We've got some more signings that we need to talk about. I don't think we need to say much about Matt Schaub. He got a 1-year deal to be the backup quarterback.
I mean, I don't know.
I mean, he's better than Renfrey, but
all I'm saying is Matt Schaub threw for almost 5,000 yards in this offense like a few years back. So Matt Ryan better keep his eyes open.
I think it's safe to say Matt Schaub is better than friggin' Sean Renfrey.
Okay. So Charles, if you had to rank the Matts on the roster, you'd rank Matt Schaub, Matt Ryan, and then Matt Sims up here.
Oh yeah, Matt Bryan. He can be number 1 though.
Okay. All right. But the actual big move that the Falcons made, bringing a guy back on a 1-year deal, was Sean Weatherspoon, the fan favorite, at least for some fans. And I personally am very happy that they brought Spoon back. I don't necessarily see him maybe contributing a whole lot this year, but I'll take like 6 games of Sean Weatherspoon over pretty much anything we've had at linebacker the last couple of years. So 1 year, $1.5 million deal, it's worth it to me.
If he can ball out and look like he did pre-injury, then he's instantly the starting middle linebacker. I don't think he'll look like he did pre-injury, but athletically, before he got injured, he was the ideal linebacker for this scheme. He flew around the ball. He was smart. He could make all the calls. I'd put him at Mike. I don't think he's where he was, but hopefully he can prove us all wrong and do that. Otherwise, I think the Falcons spent $1.5 million on a leadership guy and special teamer, so they basically re-signed Mike Peterson, which isn't that bad of a thing.
Yeah, I think it's cool that he's back, just because he's a fan favorite, and at his peak he was pretty damn good. But he really has trouble staying on the field, and at this point, he's not the same athlete he used to be. He's going to be banged up a lot. I mean, hopefully he doesn't have to be anything more than a backup and kind of a mentor to a younger guy that they bring in, because I think if they have to start Sean Weatherspoon for 16 games, if he can even play 16 games, I think that could get pretty ugly with Warlow starting next to him.
Probably true. Yeah, I think their plan right now, or I hope their plan right now, is have Weatherspoon in there, pencil him in as a starter for now, probably draft somebody on day 1 or day 2 of the draft, and hopefully, because we saw this when Weatherspoon came to Atlanta, like he was the backup to Mike Peterson, but it was probably pretty clear by like week 4 that he was the better player, and he was starting to get more reps, and then he got hurt, and that sort of sidetracked his rookie season. But I think that's probably the plan for the Falcons. It's like, oh yeah, Weatherspoon's the starter, but by like week 3 or 4, whether it's Darren Lee or Deion Jones or somebody else, I think we'll see that guy get plugged into the mix. And Weatherspoon is a good mentor. I mean, the reality is, I think what they're envisioning Weatherspoon's role is kind of why I thought keeping Justin Durant around for another year was worth it, because I do see them sort of as the same player in terms that they can both sort of mentor a young guy, and I'd much rather have that guy influencing some rookie that we draft as opposed to, the number 55. So. Okay, we got some mailbag questions about Weatherspoon. ATL Sports 404 asks, is Sean Weatherspoon just a less expensive Justin Durant? What do you guys fall on it?
He's going to play less games, so no. Well, I guess in that context, yeah, he is a less expensive Justin Durant, because I don't think you want them to see the same amount of snaps.
I kind of hope that, again, he can return to the spoon of old, but yeah, I'm expecting him to be a special teamer. So not even Justin Durant. I think he's a less expensive Mike Peterson during Peterson's final year of contract.
Well, the Falcons made 4 moves today. They haven't officially announced the Tom Compton move, but that's probably a done deal. They also signed Alec Robinson and DeMarcus Van Dyke, a cornerback. Robinson's a wide receiver. Compton's an offensive tackle. And strong safety Damian Parms, who was a undrafted free agent. We got a couple of mailbag questions about those guys. Andy, ASUP37, asks, is the addition of Aldrick exactly what the doctor ordered to make this offense top 10 again, assuming he makes the 53?
I'm sorry. No. I mean, I think. I mean, what I really liked about. I mean, at least the Aldrick and DeMarcus Van Dyke signing. I mean, I don't know anything about Damian Parms. I never even heard of him before today. But I like that they're going to get faster in some sense in all 3 phases of the game, because I don't think Aldrick's going to be anything more than probably wide receiver 4. But he's shown in the past he's capable of making explosive plays, and he can fight for snaps at return with Weems. And Van Dyke, he's probably going to be cornerback 4 or 5, depending on if they add a guy late in the draft. And I mean, he what did he run when he was coming down the draft, like 4.2 or 4.3?
4.28.
You're right. So you're getting a guy who can be, who has the speed to be a pretty good punt gunner. And I talked to some people at the Raiders, and they said he was a good special teamers and solid depth cornerback. So I like that they're getting faster with those two signings. I don't really know enough about Parms to speak on him.
Okay. Well, we do have a mailbag question about Parms. D. Luger asks, does Parms have a legit shot at strong safety, or is he just a warm camp body? I guess we kind of know where you fall on that, Charles. Right?
Yeah, probably just a camp body.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about Parms is he got cut like the day before the first preseason game last summer. He was in camp last summer. And when they brought in Terrell Manning and Travis Howard and all those signings that they made in the middle of camp, he was one of the guys that they cut that week. So, apparently the Falcons liked him enough to, keep him on speed dial, I guess, for the last 6 months. But yeah, he's just a camp body at this point. With Godfrey back, you would have to see Parms basically as this third strong safety at this point. And I would be a little surprised if the Falcons don't add at least one other strong safety, either in the draft or free agency. So they're not going to keep 4 strong safeties. So Parms is really looking at practice squad spot. As for Aldrick, I really like this move because I'm a big fan of Aldrick. I've been a big fan of his since he was at SMU, 5 years ago. I thought he always had a very good skill set for, stretching a defense. When he was with Kyle Shanahan in 2012 and 2013. We saw with that offense with RG3 at the helm, they ran a lot of play action, a lot of run action in the backfield, zone read, all that type of stuff. And basically, they would just send Aldrick, run deep Aldrick, and RG3 would just throw it up, and you just run under it. And I think, as a wide receiver 4, I think that role really fits what Aldrick does. I like the fact that the only success he's ever had in the NFL was really under Kyle Shanahan, so I do feel like people looking at his record and saying, well, he didn't do this, he's been out of the league for the better part of the last 2 years, means he's not any good. It's like, well, he hasn't been working with Kyle Shanahan in the last 2 years. And this is the type of move, this is the low risk, it's probably like a 1-year, $500K deal. High reward, I think, if you're looking at basically all the big plays that pretty much everybody not named Julio Jones had in the offense last year, I think Aldrick can do that this year. He's not going to catch 40 passes or anything like that. He's going to catch 15, 20 passes. And as long as like 5 or 6 of them are like 40-yard bombs, that's great. That's all we're really asking for. That's way more than, what Nick Williams gave us last year as our 4th wide receiver. So I think this is a big upgrade if Aldrick sticks around.
Yeah, that's a good point about him being better than Nick Williams, because Nick Williams was, even though he played a small role in the offense, that role was too big. And adding in a guy like Aldrick, who already has experience in Shanahan's offense and is capable of making those explosive plays, that's a good signing for wide receiver 4.
Yeah.
And with only 5 picks going to the draft, I think they're kind of set there going in. I think these are the wide receivers for the season.
Yeah. I think if they're going to take a wide receiver, it's going to be like a flyer late on like a return guy, just to have another body there.
Yeah.
That's about it. Yeah. All right. So, okay, let's. You got any comments on Tom Compton, Charles?
No.
Okay.
Just another guy who knows Shanahan's system, but I'd be surprised if he gets past training camp.
Are you a little worried that they brought in this guy? Maybe there's a slight chance that they're worried that Ryan Schrader's going to leave and they needed a body there?
That would be disgusting. I watched some of him today, and he is not good.
Is he better than Columbus?
I don't even think that matters.
Columbus won the Super Bowl, Charles. He's got a ring now.
That is true. He does have a ring.
All right. So we talked about Adrian Claiborne and some of the re-signings. We did, Bryce Harris, Charles Godfrey was another guy that they brought back. Do you guys have any thoughts on either of those two resignings?
Can you repeat that one more time?
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on the Falcons re-signing Bryce Harris or Charles Godfrey to 1 year, basically veteran minimum deals?
Well, not really on Bryce Harris because I think that's just I think that's just their kind of developmental guys, see if they can make something of that. But the Godfrey one is kind of confusing because well, combined with Godfrey and Parms, I just feel like the Falcons didn't really capitalize on the safety market, because it kind of feels like, based on what Vaughn has written for ESPN, it kind of feels like they're kind of winding down the free agent hunt a little bit, and I still think there's some guys out there, like Reggie Nelson, Hussein Abdullah, who played well for the Chiefs, Rashad Johnson, Tony Jefferson. I think, at this point, it seems like they could be out for bargain deals, and they're just kind of settling on the safety market, which, maybe they found a guy that they want to take in the first or second round. I guess that's okay, but I think they could have utilized the safety market a little bit better than they did. Actually, a lot better than they did.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, Charles. I think it's one of those things where, bringing back Godfrey's not a big deal, but bringing him back now, as opposed to like after the draft, when you let free agency go by and hopefully you drafted a safety, makes a lot more sense to me. And the fact that they're bringing him back now,
minimum deal. Okay. I don't understand why people are so mad that the Falcons wanted to have depth locked up before the draft when you only got 5 picks.
Because it's
veteran minimum deal.
Because it's a veteran minimum deal that could go to somebody that's actually going to make your roster.
Yeah, there's still guys out there that at least I think could be an upgrade over what William Moore was last year, and just seems like they're like, oh, whatever, we'll just take a safety in the draft. But I think
look at Reggie Nelson.
they can still get 4 guys that I just listed.
Sorry, I was dealing with a dog situation.
I said Reggie Nelson, Tony Jefferson, Rashad Johnson, and Hussein Abdullah. Like, those are all guys that I think would be better than what William Moore was last year, and at least be able to play 16 games, or hopefully 16 games.
And I'd rather have Godfrey in camp competing with Kamal Ishmael than some undrafted free agent that may not be good in Damian Parms.
Okay, so we found one guy that Charles Godfrey is better than. Okay. Yes.
Well, I don't think he's better than Ishmael. I just think he's at least competitive with it for the spot.
I was referring to Parms. I just think they basically settled for like the 25th best safety. I don't get it, but it's fine. It's the Falcons, I guess. All right, guys. So we did lose a couple of guys. Gino Gradkowski joined the Carolina Panthers, and it does seem like the Falcons aren't too close to bringing back O'Brien Schofield. It sounds like both parties are ready to part ways. We got a question from Dustin. He asked, what are your thoughts on why O'Brien Schofield hasn't been re-signed yet?
I think they were waiting on Chris Long, and Chris Long just signed with the Patriots. So I think Schofield is – I think it's very possible that that's a deal they lock up in the next couple of days.
Yeah. And then when you bring Schofield back, your pass rush set's basically Schofield, Beasley, Jarrett, and Babineau. Can't be too mad about that.
Yeah, I think Schofield's a perfect fit in the base Leo. A guy that can defend a run, a guy that can bring a little bit of pressure off the edge. So, if the Falcons were going to still use that, base nickel sort of dichotomy again this year at times, which they probably will, I think Schofield's the perfect fit in that. Obviously he can drop back and play linebacker, and he's a good special teams player, so I think that's a good move for them.
He was better at strong side linebacker than Brooks Reed was.
I'll agree there. Completely. They made Brooks Reed look like a wasted signing.
Yeah, I think this is probably unless we see a dramatic improvement, I don't think he's here in 2017.
Yeah.
Unless the Falcons want to put him at middle linebacker, which I wouldn't be 100% against.
I mean, it can't be any worse than what it was last year.
He's a good athlete, like compared to what. I mean, as much as we dog Brooks Reed as in general, he's still a better athlete than Warlow is.
Yeah. And he has experience playing in he did play some inside linebacker in Houston, so it's not the craziest move.
Yeah. Okay, so guys, people want us to basically, I guess, put a grade on this. We got a question from Andrew Scheiweiler. How would you rate the Falcons' off-season moves? And Evan Birchfield wants, on a 10-point scale, he says 10 being great, 1 being what the hell. Rate free agency for us.
I'm a little optimistic on this, so I'm going to give it more of a 7. I think you shore up center. I think the Falcons lost 2 games last year just because of how bad their center play was. So I think that alone helped the team out a ton. And then Sanu, I think, is at least an upgrade within the offense over Roddy White of last year. And then, I mean, I love Derek Shelby move. I love the re-signing of Claiborne for what he signed for. And then all the other small signings, I think you can't really get mad when you're not spending more than $2 million. So, like, the Sean Weatherspoon signing, you can't get mad at that. It's a low-risk, high-reward signing. As long as you're spending less than 1% of the cap on a player, it's kind of irrelevant. The money, at least. It's just, hey, we got this guy back. He was super cheap. Cool. So I'd give it a solid 7 or a C.
I'll give it a 5. I mean, they did get better in the trenches with Mack and Shelby, but that's new contract sucks, and you're just not going to convince me otherwise unless he goes absolutely crazy this year. So I'll give it a 5. I don't know. I think the missed opportunities. I mean, with Trevathan and Freeman, even though like they probably just want to stay. I mean, Trevathan wanted to go back to Chicago with John Fox. Freeman sounds like he just wanted to stay in the 3-4, and Ilaka just didn't want to leave Cincinnati. But there were a lot of options. There were a lot of times where they could have upgraded linebacker and safety, and they just kind of missed out on that. So I'm going to give it a 5.
Yeah, I'm right with you, Charles. I give it a 5. Probably a letter grade. I guess that's a C or C minus or something. I don't know. It's hard for me to give it more than a 5, just because I do feel like they still need help at tight end. They still need help at middle linebacker. They still need help at strong safety. And until they at least add a body at least one of those spots, I can't really give them more than a 5, just because they got a little bit better on their defensive line rotation and they upgraded center. It's just there's so much more. They still have like $9 million in cap space, so they still have room to make moves, and they can basically spend all that money just because they're going to get some off the books when Soliai his money comes off the books in June, and they can use that to sign the rookies. But it is one of those things where it's like, I don't think they're done in free agency. I can't imagine they're just going to let $9 million sit unspent when they only have 54 guys on the roster right now. So it is one of those things where I think we'll see them make a couple more moves. It's just a question of whether or not there's some more of these sort of low-key depth signings like the Godfreys and the Tom Comptons and the Alec Robinsons, or are they actually guys targeted to upgrade potential starting spots like the 3 spots I mentioned. So that's what I'm hoping to see, and until that happens, I can't really give it more than 5.
And that's the thing. If they go out and they sign Reggie Nelson, and they go out and they sign, I don't know, say Jared Cook at tight end, like Reggie or Vernon Davis at tight end. a 1-year stopgap until next year when O.J. Howard and Jordan Leggett come out. So, you got those two guys. I think those two guys would help the team tremendously.
I think Vernon Davis, at least him specifically, if you put him in Toilolo's role, I wouldn't mind that move at all. But beyond that, yeah. I mean, it's just, I get what you're saying, Scott. And so it's just one of those things where it's like, yeah, I'll be willing to bump up their grade, when they sign some more players that we can assess. But until they do, I can't give them the benefit of the doubt, Okay. So on that same note, ATL Sports 404 asks, considering the Falcons added a top-tier center, a legit deep threat, and a young athletic wide receiver, should we be complaining?
I mean, we're
legit deep. Well, I think we disagree on. What's a legit deep threat? Is that Aldrich?
I'm assuming he's talking Aldrich.
I think he's talking Aldrich.
But the snap count is going to be. It's not like Shanahan's running out here with a bunch of 4 receiver sets. I don't think that's going to be something you count on week in and week out. I just don't think that Sanu is better than what they could have gotten in the draft. Or I don't get what the rush was there. I mean that seems like a guy you can kind of sit and wait on. And see, if he gets a deal where the money doesn't match the production, then whatever, who cares? You can find that guy even later in free agency or in the draft. I don't think receiver got that much better where you say, well, we're good here. I just think you kind of pour the money in the spot where you have a number 2, in my opinion, you still kind of have a hole in number 2 receiver. You still have an unproven factor in number 2 receiver. I think they definitely got better in the line adding Alex Mack, and hopefully you kind of erase those bizarre botched snaps that they had during the season that were just drive killers. But I think that's really the only part that they got markedly better.
Yeah, should we be complaining? I don't know. I guess it's just the nature of being a Falcon fan. It's always complaining. I don't have anything to add other than what Charles said, so I'll let it go.
Outside of offensive line, I agree. No one unit is that much better. I do think Derek Shelby is a huge addition on the defensive line. If you take Tyson Jackson out of the equation, you put Shelby in for his snaps.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So, do you guys are expecting any moves to be on the horizon? There's a couple of guys out there that we've shown interest in that are still unsigned. James Laurinaitis. Chris Long was a guy, but he just got signed by the Patriots tonight as we're recording this. Reggie Nelson and Brandon Boykin. Do you feel like any of these moves are on the horizon? Like, it feels weird to me that the Falcons haven't signed a middle linebacker.
Dude, I am so good on James Laurinaitis. Keep that away. Reggie Nelson is a guy I would be interested in. I think he's an upgrade over Willie Moore last year, and he can kind of he's interchangeable with the free safety and strong safety spot, in my opinion. And Boykin. I kind of feel like Boykin got ruled out today with the Van Dyke signing because they're gonna have Alfred and True playing outside, and Jalen Collins playing outside on nickel down. So maybe Boykin does get signed, but I don't think he'd be playing that much here.
I'm with you on the idea that Reggie Nelson could be interchangeable, free safety, strong safety. I'd love to see Nelson in Atlanta. I'd love to see Walter Thurman in Atlanta. I think if you put him in that strong safety role, I think he'd do a great job. And then I'm with you on Rashard Johnson. There really aren't any signings that I see as imminent. I don't even see a James Laurinaitis signing as imminent. I don't think the Falcons are that deep in on him. Now watch they'll friggin' sign him tomorrow, but just because I said that, but still, I don't think he's gonna be that imminent of a signing. At linebacker, there really isn't anybody worth a shit available right now. I'd love to see him go after Aldon Smith, even though he's going to be suspended for 10 games. I'd love to see him go after Vincent Ray, because Ray was a solid starter a couple years back.
He got re-signed by
He just got re-signed?
Yeah.
All right. So the list I'm looking at is not even up to date. I'd love to see him go after Nick Fairley to play that nose tackle in the base.
I think that would be a great signing.
If you want a guy who can create disruption, who can eat double teams and play that one technique like he did for Ndamukong Suh, sign Nick Fairley. I think that'd be great. I think it'd be a good fit for Atlanta. I'd also like to see Terrence Knighton given a shot this year. Even Jason Hatcher. I'd rather see Jason Hatcher signed and take over that role that Tyson Jackson's in than keep Tyson Jackson.
Oh, yeah, I mean, because at least you can get some pass rush there.
Exactly.
Isn't Jason Hatcher retiring?
Is he? I don't know.
Yeah,
That's why I heard the Redskins cut him, because he was going to retire.
I'd like to see Stefan Wisniewski signed, and even if it's, hey, let's put him at guard. Hell yeah, put him at guard, and then have a nice depth center who's 27 years old. So you don't have to deal with the idea of a bad snap should your center go down. And hell, bring in Evan Mathis for a year.
Yeah, I'd be for some of those moves. We got a mailbag question along these lines, because the potential of signing a middle linebacker. Noah Williams asks, please tell me Paul Warlow won't be our starting middle linebacker next year.
Hate to break it to you, but I think I kind of said this before free agency even started, that I think Paul Warlow is going to was going to start at middle linebacker for the Falcons in 2015, and Aaron gave me shit, and Charles gave me shit, and Parsons gave me shit. Everybody gave me shit. But I was looking at the free agents out there, and I said, unless they get Trevathan, or unless they get Freeman, which they went after both, I don't think that they're going to draft a guy in the first round, because there's no way Miles Jack lasts the Falcons pick.
God.
I recall you saying that, Scott, and I remember Charles and I basically said, if that happens, then we need to fire Dan Quinn on the spot. So, if that happens...
No, I was just looking into the draft and free agency. There were like 3 guys who were legitimately good fits out of the draft and free agency for a middle linebacker.
Dude, they should have tanked. They should have tanked the season and got a Miles Jack.
Miles Jack,
Jack.
Danny Trevathan. Unless Miles Jack is too injured to go in the top 10, he ain't getting taken at 17. So that's what I'm saying.
Look, we know how this is going to go. They're going to take Reggie Wagland at 17, and we're going to be the same old slow defense that we've always been.
They're not high on Wagland.
But yeah, I do think that, I mean, the way it's shaping up now, Warlow's probably going to be starting again a middle linebacker, which is
Warlow starting next to Darren Lee.
I mean, I like Darren Lee, but man, putting him and Warlow on the field together at the same time.
That's just wasting Darren Lee's ability. It's a waste of talent right there.
You're just asking. You're asking a lot of mistakes to be made, and the pass rush is not good enough yet. But I think one thing that's getting kind of lost in not having any linebackers or safeties besides Allen, you still got True and Alford, which did lead a top 15 pass defense with no pass rush. So, hey, maybe this can be okay.
Maybe. We just gotta hope and pray that it actually works out.
I think Vic's gonna have to take a big step forward this year.
Yeah, that's safe to say. That's definitely safe to say.
So I'm trying to look up tight ends that we got to play this year. I mean,
How about
I know
overall teams, man?
Jimmy Graham, I know, is on that list.
Unless his knee's dead.
Travis Kelce, Antonio Gates is going to carve up our linebackers at 100 years old.
Who do we get this year? The AFC West and the NFC West?
Yeah, that's brutal.
We got Gates. We got, the NFC or the AFC West. The Raiders got Michael Rivera, Clive Walford. That's going to be fun.
Garrett Seelick's going to get 3 touchdowns against us this year.
We got to play Ertz too in Philly.
We got Lance Kendricks. That's another problem right there. You know, earning that $25 million contract that we offered him.
Greg Olsen, as always. Kobe Fleener, who isn't great, but as we all know, Drew Brees makes tight ends look amazing because Ben Watson's not that great, and Drew Brees somehow made him look like the friggin' Pro Bowler against the Falcons. So I think Kobe Fleener will go off. Austin Seferian-Jenkins, who in college was great.
Yeah, another year where we're like dead last in tight end.
And then Wilson and Graham are going to fucking destroy us. I don't think Wilson's that great, but I think he's good enough to like find the hole. He's like Brian Finneran with more fat. That's Luke Wilson to me. And yeah, I know I subbed one tall white guy out for another tall white guy. I don't care.
Okay. Well, I mean, he's a tight end, so he's automatically going to be, a 100-yard receiver. So
let's be honest here. Brian Finneran was effectively a tight end who just happened to play wide receiver and was like 219 pounds.
You talking about old Brian Finneran or young Brian Finneran?
I'm talking like 07 to end of career Brian Finneran, not like Michael Vick's Brian Finneran, where he still had some speed.
I can go with you on that one. Speaking of old tight ends, Evan Birchfield asks, are you surprised that we really haven't done anything at tight end in free agency or are content with Jacob Tamme?
I'm not really surprised.
Tamme had a good year.
Yeah, he wasn't that bad.
I can't be that mad at a tight end who had the 10th best season out of all tight ends, and the only tight ends who beat him were Junior Miller, Algie Crumpler, and Tony Gonzalez in Falcons history. Like, those are the only 3 Falcons who have had better years at tight end. I can't be mad at keeping the guy who did that.
Yeah, I don't think it's a issue with keeping Tamme. I think Tammy's done a fine job. I guess it's a question of, we know Tammy's not much of a red zone threat, and the Falcons could definitely use some help at that spot because, Matt Ryan's really good at throwing the tight ends in the red zone, even guys not named Tony Gonzalez. But it does look like the tight end group, once Green and Fleener and Cameron didn't get cut, and I don't think the Falcons have any interest in Martellus Bennett. So it's one of those things where you look at I'm looking at the tight end list and I'm not seeing any, Clay Harbor, I guess, and Jared Cook is a tease, so that's just going to be money down the drain. So it's one of those things, like, unless you want to sign Anquan Bolden and make him a tight end, then there ain't much out there.
So Tamme had the 7th most receptions, the 8th most receiving yards for a tight end in a single Falcon season. The only 2 names ahead of him were Algie Crumpler and Tony Gonzalez. So that's probably why they're content with Jacob.
Yeah, I said, like, right at the end of the season, I don't think tight end is a big enough need where you're going to have to pour premium resources into it. Maybe take a guy in the 4th round and let him try to learn the game behind Tamme, but you don't need to go sign a guy. I think if you got to start Tamme again, that's not the end of the world at all.
I mean, and that's why I keep espousing guys like Vernon Davis who could play that number 2 role, or Jared Cook, who I think could play that number 2 tight end role. Because I'd rather see them for a year, and then the Falcons go out and get someone like O.J. Howard, or
Leggett.
Because those are the 2 tight ends that I think would actually make an impact within the Falcons offense because I think they could stretch the seam, and I think they could be pretty good blockers because I've seen them be pretty good blockers in college. I mean, unless they're getting like Nick Vannett, I don't really see any guy out there this year that's really worth that kind of investment in the draft.
I want Austin Hooper.
Yeah, he can play.
I want him in the red zone because he's basically just a basketball player. He just posts up dudes and he'll catch everything in traffic. I just want him in the red zone. That's who I want.
I mean, I do see a lot of gates in him, but that's not. I don't disagree with you there. I do like Austin Hooper, but do you want to spend a second-round pick on a tight end in this week tight end class?
I don't have a problem with that. Like I with guys like Howard and Leggett, yeah, they're good and they'll probably be top 50 picks next year. But if they want to be in first-round picks, I'm not taking no tight end in the first round. I want to free up our first-round pick or our top 50 picks to beef up our line still, because I think those are still going to be areas that we're going to need to address next year in next year's draft. And if we can get a big body in there that can help in the red zone, I think it's worth it for this year.
With how deep this defensive line class is, I'd rather see the Falcons go out and take Chris Jones, Jerron Reed, Kenny Clark, Vernon Butler, someone like that who happens to fall to their pick in the second at defensive tackle, than spend it on a tight end. Because I think overall that would make the team better. Okay,
I mean, that's fair. I just think this is such a deep group of D linemen that you're still going to get second-round talents in the third round. So, a guy like Javon Hargrave might, probably in previous year's class could have been a top 50 pick, and he'll probably be like, third, fourth round type of dude. So, I don't think it's a big deal if you pass on the D line in round 2 because you can still get talent later in the draft. But speaking of D-line talent, we got a question here about are the Falcons done making cuts, and I think this relates to the defensive line because everybody's looking at that guy named Tyson Jackson. Why is he still on the roster?
Because they don't have anyone better. I think Starship Troopers had the line said best. The job is yours until you die or I find someone better.
Isn't that person Derek Shelby? Isn't that person Malachi Goodman?
Well,
the coaching staff may not think it's Malachi Goodman.
Goodman does not exist as far as I'm concerned. I mean, he didn't play last year. He's clearly not in their plans. But yeah, I mean, I don't get the point of just hanging on to Tyson Jackson. I mean, in the way that they're moving on defensive line, they were trying to sign Chris Long. They already brought in Shelby. They re-signed Claiborne. It feels like they're trying to get faster up front. And why keep him around? Like, let him go sign somewhere else. It doesn't really make sense to me why they're just latching on to him.
It could just be a giant FU to him for wasting all their money.
I mean, that's just childish.
Well,
this is the team that asked a player if he was gay at the combine. This is the team that has Brian Cox as like its biggest name, and he's out here punching scouts in the face. Like, let's not put childish past the Atlanta front office at this moment, especially with Pioli up there.
That's fair enough.
Some stories I've heard about Pioli, you can't repeat in front of others. I'll put it that way.
Okay. All right, we got a couple more mailbag questions. Let's wrap this thing up. Evan Birchfield asked, it seems a lot of our moves offensively are based on whether Kyle, as in Shanahan, has coached them before. Is this a good or bad strategy?
We will find out this year. And, Mac, Compton, Robinson, even brought, Bobby Turner to coach the running backs. We'll see. And I think Mac is the clear upgrade, but Robinson and Compton and Schaub should at least provide some functional knowledge of the offense at the very least. because it did seem from comments through Roddy White this past a few weeks ago, and what Vaughn McClure was kind of leaking out through the season, that there was a disconnect between what the players wanted to do and what Shanahan wanted to do. And I really do think that Schaub is going to be kind of a glue guy between Ryan and Shanahan, and then you got Raheem Morris, who's kind of a rah-rah players guy to kind of help mold that together. But we'll see this year if this is a good or bad strategy, and I'm sure that Kyle Shanahan's job security is on the line this season.
And I think either way, no matter who they would get to replace Shanahan, should they fire him after this year, it's still going to be that zone blocking running game. It's still going to be a West Coast passing game, no matter who they get, because that's the philosophy that they seem to want in the offense. So, yeah, even if they do get rid of Kyle Shanahan, I think they'll keep Chris Morgan, Bobby Turner, and a couple of the other guys as assistant coaches. They might even just promote within. They might say, you know what, let's move up Matt LaFleur from quarterbacks coach to offensive coordinator. Or let's put Bobby Turner as the offensive coordinator. I'm not saying he'd be a good one, but that might be the route they go. Or hell, even Chris Morgan might be the route they go. He was the guy that was handpicked from Dan Quinn to come with him from Seattle. The one coach he was allowed to bring with him.
Yeah, I mean, this is a make-break year for Kyle Shanahan, so we'll find out. Just 2 words for a potential replacement. I said it last year. Greg Knapp. I think that's going to be the guy.
And honestly, the Falcons finally have the quarterback and the line and the running back and the people that actually run a Greg Knapp scheme. So would it be that bad? Probably not. As opposed to 04 to 06 when he probably should have not been here.
All right. Another question from Evan Birchfield. He asked, what team did you come away most impressed by in free agency?
Chicago.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they got Trevathan, Freeman, Akeem Hicks, Bobby Massey, who I think is really underrated. They got a lot better. And a bonus of getting Massey is getting to kick Kyle Long back into guard. So you're kind of upgrading 2 spots at one signing. I really like what the Bears did.
I think the Bears are going to take a left tackle in the draft, too. So they'll end up with that left tackle that they take in the draft, Slauson, Grossu, Long, and then Massey as their offensive line. And I think they'll do a really good job this year protecting Cutler.
I like, just to be different, I like what the Eagles did. I really like the Brandon Brooks upgrade at guard. I think that's like the same as us upgrading from Mike Person to Alex Mack, going from Matt Tobin to Brandon Brooks. It's huge. Rodney McLeod is a big upgrade at free safety. People got mad at them for, paying Sam Bradford, but it's like, Brock Osweiler got the same amount of money. And played.
Really that much better than Walter Thurman, though?
Yes.
Walter Thurman was good in their old scheme because they like to have interchangeable safeties. Now, if they're going to have more of a center fielder, McLeod is much better in that, and he can do a lot of other stuff. Chase Daniel, Nigel Bradham was a really good low-key signing.
And they got rid of the Murray and Maxwell contracts.
So here's the thing: why do people think they're going wide 9 with Jim Schwartz when he only ran it like 2 or 3 years when he was up in
Buffalo?
Detroit?
He ran it with Buffalo too.
He ran it with Buffalo?
Yeah. That's when they got Jerry Hughes. Yeah.
Because I think they would be fine with a standard 4-3 alignment, not the wide 9 in Philly. You got Fletcher Cox who can put it the 3. Benny Logan's a perfect 1 technique. Curry can play the 6, and then you have Brandon Graham as the 9 on the other side.
I think Curry could be a 9 too.
Yeah, I mean that's what he was at Marshall.
Passing sets, but I'm saying like in rushing sets, you bring him back into a 7, a 6 or a 7, and then you got Hart that you can rotate out with Cox. You got Bo Allen that you can rotate out with Logan. I like Connor Barwin as a strong safety, or not strong safety, strong side linebacker in that scheme. I think he's underrated by a lot of people.
I heard they're going to put him at DE and have him rushing from the 9.
At end,
Yeah.
even it still makes sense. I still like him a lot in that scheme.
But yeah, the reason, as Charles said, it's, they dumped that Brian Maxwell contract like it was nothing and moved up in the draft so they can get Ezekiel Elliott. So.
And they dropped Kiko, who was awful last year.
And if they get Fairley, I mean, that's just like the most amazing offseason that you can dump the worst contract in football, move up in the draft, and get one of the 5 best players in the draft. That's an amazing offseason.
Gotta say, I love what Miami Dolphins did in terms of getting rid of Brent Grimes. Just because I like seeing Miko flip out on Twitter.
That's my wife. Don't talk about it like that.
Oh, I'm still salty towards her for obvious reasons.
Who cares? Miko is dope. Don't slander her like that.
Nah.
Scott has a very personal negative interactions with Miko.
There's a word that starts with a C that I used to describe her. I'll put it
All right, let's move on.
This is a family show. Not really, but.
All right. We got a question from Space Ninja. He asks, have the Falcons given up on Hageman with the Shelby signing? I think the Falcons will have a decent pass rush in 2016.
I don't think signing Derek Shelby says anything about Rashid Hageman other than, hey, we're putting more people up here who can help him stop the run or help him stop the run, help him rush the passer. Like, how does adding a guy who's going to play next to him say that you don't believe in the guy? I don't understand that.
I think it says...
Let's say getting Shaq Lawson or a defensive end in the first round of this year's draft is going to hurt is saying that they don't believe in Vic Beasley. If anything, it says they believe in him more because they want to get him help.
I think that I think it kind of does say something about Hageman, adding Shelby. I think it says they're kind of done with him as a pass rusher. I mean, I don't think he's shown anything that says he's going to be more than a 2-sack guy there, probably. Maybe a 3-sack, 4-sack if everything goes right. I think Shelby signing kind of says we're just going to have Hagen be a run stopper.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment, Charles. And I feel like somebody named Aaron been saying that all along, that,
Yeah, you were right.
Hageman to be this difference maker as a pass rusher was probably not going to work out. But, Hageman's good. He's fine. He'll have those Andrew Norwell games like he did in Week 17 last year, and you'll be like, oh, this is the Hageman that we always wanted, and you'll get that like 3 or 4 times a year, and you'll be very happy with that. And those will probably be wins for the Falcons in those games because, when he's wrecking shop like that, it's very hard to do whatever you want to do offensively for the opponent. But yeah, he's just going to be a rotational guy, a run stopper, and that's fine. He'll be really good at that role. There's nothing wrong with that. That's fine. Well, speaking of that, ATL Sports 404 says, are Rashid Hageman and Grady Jarrett ready for bigger roles?
Jarrett, yes. Rashid, I don't know if his role is going to get any bigger than it was last year.
I mean, I think it should. I think you should see 5 to 10 more snaps a game. I mean, he was seeing, 25? What would it kill us to see him go in for 35?
If those 5 to 10 come at defensive end, I wouldn't mind it. I'd like to see him out there wrecking right tackles.
I mean, I think he could wreck right tackles, but I'd rather see him. I'd love to see him inside as well at the 1-tech, especially in pass rush sets. Why not put him inside and have Grady Jarrett next to him and let Babineau have a breather sometimes? I don't see how that would hurt anything.
Yeah, I think Jarrett's going to be in for a bigger role. As I said earlier, I do think they're sort of going to play him and replace Solia with Jarrett. I think that's the plan right now, which I didn't think was going to be the case. couple of weeks ago. But the fact that they haven't signed a nose tackle, even a body yet, it sort of sounds like they don't feel like they need to get a starter for that. So
Grady was the ninth-ranked defensive tackle in the league according to Bleacher Report. So
there you go.
maybe there's something there.
Yeah. There you go. Hageman was top 20, right?
We had 5 in the top 20. Hageman, T-Jax, Claiborne, Soliak, and Grady. I can't believe he only managed 19 sacks, being 5 of the top 20 defensive tackles in the league.
All for run defense, too. All for run defense.
Yeah, I mean, we had so many good D tackles. Of course, we cut Paul Soliak.
Just next man up.
Yeah. All right, so Bird Wilson asks, not speaking in desperation, but would you be opposed to a cap-friendly Greg Hardy contract?
No. I mean, yes. Keep him away. I don't want him anywhere near this team.
Oh, it begins. No. Not unless he's, taking anger management classes and the Falcons basically do what the Cowboys did with Dez back in the day, where they have, fucking security guards around him all the time and make sure that he's not doing stupid shit off the field. And the first time he does do something stupid off the field, he's cut. That'd be the only way I'd be for it. And even then, that's too much work to bring him on the team. So, no.
Here's the thing. Not only is he an asshole, he didn't even play that well last year. Besides, the first game he got back versus the Patriots where he was whipping their backup left tackle, he didn't play that well. And
he's out there on reputation.
Right. And he's a guy you're going to have to pay super extra attention to from the rumors and things that were leaking out of Cowboys camp. It seems like everyone kind of hated him and he was a nuisance to the team, and I don't think this team needs that. I don't think any team needs that.
A lot at how much better the Panthers got without him.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll make it unanimous. I would be very much opposed to that. Greg Hardy just needs to go away for 6 years, and
be in jail. Yeah, I agree.
If he just goes away for 6 years and then you're like, oh, hey guys, I want to come back and play football again. I've been doing whatever for 6 years, just not being Greg Hardy. Then I'll be like, okay, I'll give you a shot. Statute of limitations on you being a dirtbag, it's about 6 years. I'll give you a shot after 6 years. So, yeah, I would be very much opposed. I would probably hate that contract more than I hate Mohamed Sanu.
I just want to see him actually go to jail for fucking beating his girlfriend. Is that too much to ask? A year. Nothing crazy. A year. Just go to jail, actually serve your time, actually show some fucking remorse. Am I asking for too much? He hasn't shown any remorse. At least Ray Rice friggin' showed remorse.
Yeah.
Out of everything, he showed remorse at the very minimum. Hardy still hasn't. Hardy's like, nah, I didn't do anything wrong. No, you totally did. You just don't fucking get it. I don't want that anywhere close to the Falcons. And yeah, I'd rather have someone like Tyler Starr on the roster who may not be any sort of impact than Greg Hardy, especially if it's the same cap hit, just because I know I'm not going to have to deal with bullshit off the field from Tyler Starr that I would with Greg Hardy.
All right, ATL Sports 404 asks, Quinn said a few weeks ago that Ricardo Allen was the most improved player last year. Could he still get better?
Yeah.
Sure. Definitely.
He still made a lot of mental mistakes last year. He was good, but he could be so much better.
Yeah, I don't think he's ever going to be a guy that's going to be a thumper against the run, but
no.
He can be a guy that's, he can definitely improve his coverage, and I thought he was solid there. He's definitely a guy that can keep getting better.
Yeah, no, I think
be like a Thomas Deku in 2012 that could tackle.
Okay.
Make plays, get a lot of picks, not look horrible in cover, like look pretty good in coverage actually, playing that deep center, and then, you know, a solid tackler against the run. And that's really all he needs to be within the scheme. Because I think like 5 tackles all year.
I think if you're looking for Allen to improve, it's going to be sort of in coverage. I think we've probably reached the ceiling as in run support. You know, there's just only so much you can expect out of a 5'9", 185, even if he puts on some more weight, cornerback in terms of coming downhill and making tackles. So you're always going to have that issue there. It's really just going to be whether or not his coverage ability, his instincts, his awareness, all those sort of things, his range, you know, him being able to understand what he's doing more, which is a fair thing to expect from him since, you know, he was new to the position and getting his first NFL action last year. So there's room for growth in coverage, and it's just really about whether his coverage ability will make up for the fact that he, you know, is going to miss some tackles and, you know, cause some headaches and support.
What?
Dustin, the Falcon in Hawaii, asked, does Tyler Starr get more playing time this year now that Atlanta has limited cap space and only 5 linebackers currently on the roster?
No, I don't think so. I mean, unless they fail to re-sign Schofield, maybe then. But I think Vic's going to move to the linebacker more this year, and Brooks Reed is going to he's going to get snapped by virtue of his contract, so probably not.
Yeah, I think with Starr, you're basically, if your expectations are him making the roster and being a regular on special teams, that's about his ceiling. And, you know, if Reed gets hurt or, you know, misses time, then maybe he can get plugged in there for a couple of games like we saw with Stupar. But, you know, hopefully they bring back Schofield. Hopefully they bring back Stupar. So those 2 guys are going to be ahead of him on the depth chart.
I mean, it would only help the linebacker depth. I don't know why they wouldn't do it.
Yeah. Okay, we got another one from the Falcon of Hawaii. Atlanta currently has 9 receivers on the roster with Jones, Sanu, and Hardy's job safe. Out of the other 6 receivers, who stays and who goes?
I mean, when you're looking at Devin Hester, you're probably going to cut Hester. Personally, I would cut Weems, and then I'd have Nick Williams in Weems' role. I'd have Aldrick Robinson on the roster just to have a deep threat, and I would find a receiver in the draft somewhere late and just say, you know what, this guy's fast. He can run some routes. I'm going to put him up there.
Yeah. I would assume if Hester's getting cut, if Hester's getting cut, then I would probably put Aldrick Robinson, Nick Williams as probably safer of the 2. Weems is a good player, but next year I think he's making like $1.2 million, which is a lot of money to basically pay a guy to just basically be the up back on punt teams. Weems is great in that role, but you know, I think you can probably get somebody else to do it for half that price. So I think he would be on the bubble if he gets into training camp. And so I would probably say Williams and Robinson would probably be the 4th and 5th receiver. And if they draft another returner to basically replace Hester's spot, you might see that.
Well, I think Nick Williams could be in competition for that returner spot as well.
Yeah. Charles, you're muted. People can't hear you.
Oh,
He's just going off.
I'm realizing that we can't hear a word.
Oh, okay, my bad. I don't really like that idea of Williams over Weems. I don't. What does Williams offer in the return game? I mean, personally, I would keep Jones, Sanu, Hardy. Maybe even cut Sanu, but no. Jones, Sanu, Hardy, Aldrick, and Weems. Because I just don't get what if you have Aldridge, what's the point of keeping Nick Williams? I don't know.
Williams can run underneath routes, and Aldrick Robinson's more of a deep threat.
Boy, Shanahan loves him some Nick Williams.
Williams is a better special teamer than Aldrick Robinson is. I mean, I'd honestly say Williams is probably safer than Robinson. Because if they wanted Aldrick Robinson, they could have had him last year. He was a free agent pretty much most of last year. And they could have signed him and brought him in. So, I don't think Robinson's safe at all. I do like him. I just don't think he's safe at all. I think it's more likely that it'd be Weems and Williams sticking around if it came down to it and it was all about special teams. It'd be Weems and Williams as opposed to Robinson and one of them. Because Robinson, I like Robinson, and I think it's going to be more about offensive contribution than anything else. That's why I've been saying he's going to be on the roster. But I think between Williams and Williams, you got about the same on special teams. And you can bring in a returner. You can find a returner. I'd rather have returner be a need in the draft than really worry about keeping a guy like Weems on the roster.
Okay. Now we get into the fun part of the mailbag, because these are all draft questions from here on out. First one comes from Andrew Shawwaller. He asks, with players that we thought were going to be there at 17 looking like they may not be there, do you hope the Falcons now trade back in the draft?
Not at 17. I want to use that first round pick. But in the second round, I think that makes more sense. But that hasn't really been something we've seen Dimitrov do, so I wouldn't be expecting it.
Yeah, if he trades back in the first round, it would be the first time he's ever done it. So, I mean, you got some names that could be there. You're not going to get Miles Jack there, Joey Bosa. You may not even see Shaq Lawson there, but maybe Noah Spence falls. Maybe you end up taking Darren Lee. I hate the idea of taking Jonathan Bullard there, but he could be the pick. I know a lot of Georgia fans would love it if the Falcons brought in Leonard Floyd.
Not me.
I mean, he's basically Deion Jordan. When I saw Justice post that, I was like, that's exactly who he compares to. I think his ceiling would be someone like Julian Peterson, if you use him in a similar role. That might be before your time, though, Charles.
No, I remember Peterson with the 49ers in the line.
Damn, you remember him with the 49ers? What were you, 5?
Yeah, that's when I started watching. I still remember all that stuff very vividly. I don't know why.
Okay, that's weird.
Oh man, you say that it's weird, but I remember when the Falcons signed Cornelius Bennett and being really excited about it for some reason. And when I was like, "How do you know who Cornelius Bennett is?" I don't know. I like him. He's a good player. I watched the Buffalo Bill game one time, and he was running all over the place. Like, I was excited because they signed Cornelius Bennett.
Okay.
Signing.
Trading back from 17, I think, I don't think it's likely, just because you have to have someone wanting to come up, and looking at the way the draft might go, like maybe one of those teams at the end of round 1 that are looking for offensive tackle help might, if there's like a run on offensive tackles in the middle of the first round, like Jason Spriggs or Taylor Decker, and they don't think he's going to last to their pick, they might come up and get him. Maybe someone really likes one of these defensive linemen, and because I think we're going to see a bunch of D linemen go between like 15 and 32 in the first round.
Maybe someone really likes a quarterback.
Yeah, Paxton Lynch, if he's still available, maybe.
Like the Joe Flacco situation is what I'm suggesting.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's possible the Falcons could move back. I wouldn't count on it right now. Like, we'll have to see as we get closer in April how sort of people's stock is, because it's kind of all fluid. Like, we kind of know, okay, these guys are going to be like all top 10 picks, top 8 picks, and then it's kind of just pick who you like after that point. So we'll figure it out. Evan Birchfield asks, did free agency influence your opinion in any way on your draft projection for us.
Yeah, I think they kind of pigeonholed or cornered themselves where they have to go at least early. You know, you got to take a linebacker in the first or second round. And you probably got to take a safe in the first or second round. So maybe I mean one of those two positions is going to be picked very, very early, and possibly another edge guy on day 2.
Yeah, I did change my now. I feel like there's we've been seeing mock drafts for like the last 3 months that say the Falcons are going to take a D tackle, and I just didn't really buy that. But I think some of the moves that they made does seem like there's a chance, at least a decent chance that they could do that in first round. But yeah, I think Charles is right. I think there's a pretty high chance that they take a linebacker with one of the first 2 picks. And I do think right now, because they haven't signed a tight end, at some point they're going to take one either in between rounds 2 and 4. So,
I mean, would it really be that bad if they took Sheldon Rankins or someone like that with the first pick?
I'm on board. I'm slowly coming around to Sheldon Rankins.
That's my guy.
I get mad when I watch Louisville tape because I'm like, why don't they let him pin his ears back and get up to the quarterback?
It's dumb.
It's like, stop.
So wouldn't Rankins be fun next to Grady Jarrett and Jonathan Babineau and Rashid Hageman inside?
Be a pretty nice combo.
I think it'd be fun. I think that'd be a very fun defensive tackle rotation.
But I look at it like it's
investment, but whatever.
I look at it like Dan Quinn seems to be obsessed with the St. Louis Rams front, and it's like, oh, if you're obsessed with the St. Louis Rams front, maybe you should be obsessed with Aaron Donald. And I'm not saying Sheldon Rankins is Aaron Donald, but he's probably the closest thing in this draft is someone like Aaron Donald. So if you're trying to, for some reason, bring that St. Louis front, James Laurinaitis and all, to Atlanta, then might as well take a flyer on Sheldon Rankins if he's there at 17.
Yeah, I'm here for that. Especially if they're gonna put Grady at nose, and that's kind of where they see him. I think you probably want to bring in another guy who's kind of like Jonathan Babineau, just to kind of get ready for him moving on in a few years. So Rankins will make a lot of sense in the first round.
All right. ATL Sports 404 says, you are Dan Quinn. Darren Lee, Shaq Lawson, and Emmanuel Agba are available at 17. Who do you take?
I do a backflip and on my way to the podium and throw in Shaq Lawson's name. I think that's a perfect fit. With Claiborne already at the Leo, I think Claiborne and Shaq Lawson, that's a really, really good rotation right there. Especially since they missed out on Chris Long. That's a really good rotation, and you kind of keep that theme of staying fast and physical on defense. So I would love that pick.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm putting Shaq Lawson. Obviously I can't have nice things like Miles Jack.
No.
So it feels like if there's going to be a guy that the Falcons are hoping is going to, because right now I don't think Shaq Lawson's going to be there at 17, but I think he should be very high on the draft board, and if he's there, then he's over those 3 guys definitely. I don't think Agba's in that conversation at 17.
No, I don't think Agba's any good.
Really?
I think
but I like him for that strong side defensive end role.
I think Agba's honestly pretty terrible.
I think if you trade back and you trade with like Denver or something like that, and you take Agba like 31, I wouldn't have a problem with that. But
I don't like Bud Dupree much either, though, didn't right?
No, but I think Agba's worse than Dupree is, definitely.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I wasn't a huge Bud Dupree fan, and I think Bud Dupree's better than Agba.
The dude doesn't even know how to get.
He likes some players because you can kind of see trends.
Right. I wouldn't be surprised if I was to pick at 17 because we
He's
saw
long.
we saw last year with Vic, Jalen, Tevin, and Grady. They're gonna go after freak athletes in the draft. So if Og was to pick there at 17, I wouldn't be surprised. I just wouldn't be a fan of the pick.
Yeah, yeah. I think he's more of a workout warrior than a guy that's going to be a great NFL defensive end.
The dude doesn't know how to get out of his stance correctly, and he doesn't know how to use his hands. Like we talk about like, oh, just coach him up, but come on, we gotta have some baseline skill that's already there, and I think he's way, way, way raw. Like I think if you brought Ogba in as a rookie, Vic's rookie season would look incredible compared to his.
Scott, did you answer this question? Did you have a pick of one of those three guys?
Wait, Shaq Lawson all day.
Okay.
Yeah, just again, freak athlete. Shaq Lawson is by far the best fit for the Falcons scheme. I mean, I didn't realize that I actually had to answer that question because I figured everybody knew where I was standing on that one.
Okay.
Like, I'm a Shaq Lawson. If Shaq Lawson's there, he's a top 10 player in this draft easily. And based on film, I already thought that. Based on his combine, he's right there. I've got my formulas just like Justice has his formulas, and he beats all the thresholds that I have. Because I went back and looked at how all these guys did, and you're more likely to have a 10-sack guy if they beat these thresholds than if they don't. So it's like 64% more. So that's why I like my 135, 125, 215 that I look for. So give me Shaq Lawson because he beats those numbers.
All right. Noah Williams asks, I think we just kind of answered this, but we'll put a button on it. He asks, if Lawson and Lee are gone, what are the chances the Falcons go interior pass rusher in the first?
Very high, I would guess.
I'd put it in the 60% range, especially
Yeah.
if it's a freak athlete like Sheldon Rankins.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, they're definitely gonna try to keep upgrading this pass rush in the draft, and if Lawson and Lee are gone, I think that's probably the next best guess.
Yeah, ditto. On that note, Andrew Shawweiler asks, what are your guys' thoughts on Jonathan Bullard? Charles is not a fan, I know that for a fact.
He's so weird because I didn't think he was as good. I didn't think he was athletic as he was until we hit the combine, and I was like, oh wow, well, he is a pretty good athlete for his size, and I was talking to Justice about it, and he got to the mid-tier portion of force players, which is kind of hit or miss right there. But the dude, like, he's so reliant on his first step, and it's like he's either gonna beat you off the ball and just blow everything up, or he's gonna be in the linebacker's laps like 5 yards down the field. He doesn't know how to rush a passer. Like, I've seen comparisons between Bullard and Michael Bennett, and Bennett is like if you're rating like technical prowess on a 1 to 10 scale, Bennett's a 10 in terms of like hand usage and using his, like, getting his feet all straightened up like that, and Bullard's like a 3. So there's a long way to go before Bullard's a guy who's going to produce on a consistent basis, but the splash plays are there, and I'm sure they'll kind of be there in his rookie year, but he's pretty raw. I would not be a fan of that at 17 at all. I wouldn't like that pick.
I think it's interesting you say that because I see Bullard as a 3 tech. I think playing him at end is you only do that just so you can get some decent run snaps out of him because he wouldn't really hold up as a D tackle inside on rundowns. But he's never really going to be a great run defender, in my opinion. The player I like comparing him to, I kind of compare him to Jonathan Babineau in the sense that they have a sort of similar frame. I think they're both like 6'3", 285 or something like that. But the thing about Babineau, people got to remember, is basically Babineau took like 3 or 4 years to develop before he really became Jonathan Babineau. And I think with some of the things that Charles says about Bullard, it's like he has upside, but it might take him the better part of his rookie contract before he hits it. So
right. And with Babineau, that's okay because what was he? He was a 4th-round pick, right?
No, he was a late second.
It was a second-round pick, but the Falcons had Rod Coleman on the roster in 05, 06, 07 for him to learn under. So by the time he really was a starter, 08, 09, and Babineau was only like 20 years old when they drafted him.
Yeah.
That's why it's like 11 years later and he's, 32? Where Roddy was 35?
Yeah.
Babineau's 30. Babineau's 34, but still, he was only like 22 when they drafted him. He was 2 years younger than Roddy, because Roddy turns 36 this year.
I think Roddy only turned 35 this year.
No clue.
I only know that because I've been talking so much trash about Roddy, and I've been like, he's 34 years old. Yeah, so, yeah. Scott, did you give your thoughts on Bullard?
I think you're going to be wasting a pick on a guy who's basically exactly what you already have. So that's my thoughts on Bullard. You already have him. It's going to take him too long to be worth the pick. So why waste your resources, your money, your high pick on that?
All right. I think this is our last question. It comes from the Falcon in Hawaii. He says, with re-signing Charles Godfrey and the newly signed Damian Parms, does Atlanta still draft a safety in the first 3 rounds?
Absolutely.
It depends on who's available. But
well, yeah, I mean, there's still a chance that they get this settled before the draft, but my confidence in that is pretty low. And Damian Parms, come on. Godfrey, come on. They're not stopping you from taking a safety like in the 2nd or 3rd round. Not at all. So yeah, there's definitely still a strong possibility.
I mean, if Keanu Neal is there in the 2nd round, you have to take him. He's just a perfect fit, and Quinn already knows him.
Or even if like I think Carl Joseph is a guy that could fall because he hasn't worked out and he's small and he's coming off that knee injury, but he can ball. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's still there on day 2.
I mean, if he's there if Carl Joseph is there in the 3rd round, I would take him there.
Yeah.
Got 1st-round talent, but the injuries scare the shit out of me.
Yeah, that's fair. I would forgive Dan Quinn for every terrible decision he's made this offseason if they draft Carl Joseph. So that's how much I like Carl. He's my 2nd favorite player in this draft behind Miles Jack. Not saying he's the 2nd best, but
who says it's too early to say that he's made a bunch of terrible decisions this offseason? That let's at least wait to see it play out. Because I feel like last offseason, we were like, Adrian Claiborne, that's a bad decision. O'Brien Schofield, wasting his money.
I feel like they were definitely smarter with their money last offseason. At least for me.
Outside of the Sanu contracts.
Well, look, it's not about. It's really not.
Oh my God! What the fuck?
It's the problem is last year it was their first year. They were inheriting a quote unquote talented roster, as some people like to put it, and so it was just kind of like bringing in those sort of guys. Now this year they don't have an excuse to not bring in their guys. So it's one of those things where the standards have been raised to what they need to do because they kind of know what they have and they need to go out and get more of what they have. And so it isn't like I'm not trying to sit here and act like every move they've made is a terrible decision, but I just feel like last year they signed Brooks Reed and it was sort of like, okay, I see what they're doing with this. They signed Mohamed Sanu and it's like, I have no clue what they're doing with this. Why didn't they get a middle linebacker? Why aren't they getting a strong safety? Like they don't have the sort of benefit of the doubt, as much benefit of the doubt as they did last year. So that's what I mean by that. Okay. Wait, I think we got one more. From Andrew Shawwaller. And by the way, appreciate it, Andrew, for reminding me that Jason Hatcher is visiting the Saints, so apparently he's not retiring yet.
Oh.
But
fuck the Saints.
Andrew's last question is, how much better does the run defense get at all?
Ask us after the draft.
Yeah.
Because the defensive line got better, but the linebackers are atrocious. I mean, Paul Warlow and Spoon, like, come on, just go out there with 9 people.
Yeah,
That's what it was like for most of the season. You know, you get past, because I mean the defensive line was pretty good stopping the run last year, but if you get past those guys, you're at Ricardo Allen immediately. That's how it was.
And losing Soliai, if you're not going to upgrade that linebacker spot, you're going to really miss Soliai because, you know, Grady Jarrett's good, but he's not going to be keeping those guys clean. His job is to penetrate, not, you know, two gap and hold blocks.
He's not 350 pounds, that's for sure.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where, yeah, ask us after the draft. it doesn't look good right now. Like they're not going to be a top 10 run defense if the season started tomorrow. That's what I would say. All right, guys, that's our show tonight. It's a long one. We had a lot of free agency talk to do this week. Charles, people can find you at Sunday Fiasco on Twitter. As again, you're at the Falcoholic. You're at Playmaker Mentality. You do the Frenzy Falcon podcast. Optimum Scouting just dropped their draft guide. I
yes,
believe
please.
Some stuff.
I hate to be this guy, but buy my draft guide, please. Please buy it.
You must get a cut of that one.
Yeah, I mean that was just blood, sweat, and tears. A lot of tears. Yeah, buy the draft guide. In the coming week, I'll have breakdowns on Alex Mack and Sanu. So be on the lookout for that on the Falcoholic. And yeah, that's about it for right now.
Yeah, I'm trying to look up what's the price on the draft guide. Optimum Scouting, $10. There you go, guys. That's pretty cheap. Like you can't complain about that, you know.
Yeah, we got quarterback charts, edge pressure, statistics, blocking stats, and like 250 scouting reports. So you should definitely check that out.
Yeah, OptimumScouting.com, guys. Check it out. Help put some money and some food in Charles's belly. He needs it. But Charles, you got anything else on? Charles, you got anything else on deck for any of your other sites coming up?
Maybe. Well, I mean, Justice and I are thinking about doing like joint pieces on the defensive lineman in the draft. I mean, it's me and Justice, so we probably won't get around to it. But I plan on doing like shorter videos than the ones I was doing before, like maybe just highlighting a play or two of some of the draft prospects I like. So hopefully, I think I'm going to record one right after this. So be on the lookout for that tomorrow.
Okay. Scott, what do you got on deck over at the Falcoholic?
I'm doing cap articles right now. Basically what the money looks like, how it really is going to hit the cap, when the Falcons are probably going to cut these guys, and what the deal really looks like. Example, Alex Mack signed that deal. It's a 5-year deal that he signed, but he may only see 3 years of it, kind of thing.
Okay. All right, well, guys, you can hit up Scott on Twitter. He's at Karasik S. I'm at FalcFans if you want to get your mailbag questions in next week, because I'm sure there will be something Falcons related to talk about then. You can use the hashtag Falcons Mailbag. You can tweet the show's Twitter handle at FalconsPFC. Be sure to rate and review us on iTunes. Subscribe. Check out Pro Football Central. A lot of great other team podcasts. So you can, if you're down about the Falcons free agency period, then maybe you'll go over there and check out, you know, the Lions and the Patriots and maybe feel a little bit better because they're also not happy. I don't know. So, guys, you can do that, and we'll be back, and we'll be talking more free agency, more draft stuff.